Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today was day 6 in Iceland and it was the last full day in Iceland because tomorrow I am getting on an airplane, which seems strange to be thinking about. I'm very thankful today was a very easygoing day because I am not feeling at 100% right now. My period started yesterday and day 2 is the heavy day. I looked at my period supplies that I had left and realized I probably didn't have enough left to make sure I didn't bleed through for the trip home tomorrow. I thought about my options and I ended up asking one of the owners of the ranch mid-morning if she would be able to get some pads for me because one of the other people from the trip was actually leaving tonight. And I thought, well, if she has to leave town anyway. It turns out she actually had a bunch of pads there and this discreet bag for me so she could just hand it, and it's way more than I need. So I think I'm just going to take what I need and leave the rest in the hotel room. If I don't bleed through my pants in the hotel tomorrow, it is thanks to Christine. I am very, very grateful to her for that. It was a little bit harder waking up for breakfast today. I ended up getting out of bed a little bit later than I have the past couple days because period. And also when it's time that it's later on in the trip, my body starts feeling it being like super active compared to the majority of my life where I am like mostly just sitting around. But the beginning at breakfast was the same thing as normal. They didn't actually have any peanut butter today, but quibbling over what food is available when all the food has been really good seems petty. I was still able to have honey and marmalade and all sorts of things. Although one of the other people on the tour ended up buying peanut butter from the airport and they're not going to be able to use it on the way home, so I'm going to try to use some of their peanut butter tomorrow morning, even if some peanut butter is out there, just so that peanut butter doesn't go to waste. Then shortly after breakfast, I had finished the sweater last night with the exception of grafting the underarms. So I ended up asking the knitting designer who was with us how to graft the underarms, and she showed me real quick and I was able to finish them both. The first sleeve was shakier than the second sleeve, but that's how it typically works. But this is my finished sweater. I can tell you, everyone was in love with this today. Able to get the nice horse pattern done. I was able to win yarn chicken. I'm actually really able to see the horse pattern now. I've been having trouble seeing it for most of the day. Don't know why. I finished the nice sweater and then almost immediately I tried it on and everyone was super thrilled about it. Probably because everyone else is in various stages and we actually now had a finished sweater on the group. And it's also a pretty special feeling when you get to wear a finished project that you completed in front of the person who designed the pattern you were working on, and then seeing that designer really love how it turned out. That was pretty cool as well. So obviously I wore the sweater for most of the day. My goal was to wear the sweater when we were riding horses later on to find out how the Lopipesa held up to the Icelandic elements because the sweater was made for here. It was a chill morning. The knitting designer also showed how to start the yoke by attaching the sleeves to the main body of the sweater because the Lopipesas work from the bottom up, and other people got their sleeves attached to their bodies today, which was exciting. She explained the whole blocking process for the sweater, which I realize the sweater probably is going to need some blocking because it is sitting a little bit weirdly on me. The underarms are sinking down a little bit, and if I can get it blocked up a little bit here, it'd be nice. But she said to put it into warm water and then just basically drown the sweater in the warm water so all the bubbles come up, and then let it soak for a couple minutes, but don't agitate it because that felts it. Just soak it and then take it out and then put it on a blocking board and pin it to how you want it because the sweater will shrink as it dries. So if you want it longer, you can make it go longer, but also just make sure there are no weird bumps or folds that you don't want to be in the sweater to be there. It was a pretty easygoing morning. Lunch was pretty good. We had carrot soup for lunch with fried onions as an option, and there's lots of bread. We were joking earlier that Hestaland probably has not had to supply as much coffee, butter, bread, and wine as they did for our group. Because literally, with the exception of me, everyone is a coffee or tea drinker, which put the coffee machine through the works. Especially since one of the people here also happens to own a coffee shop. For dessert for lunch, one of Hestaland's owner's children's had her 6th birthday yesterday, and so she had leftover birthday cake. Unlike the rest of the desserts, it was like more of a store-bought dessert with a screen printed photo on the front with ink, but I can tell you that compared to American cake, even the Icelandic store-bought cake was better. It's much better food. We were knitting for about another hour after lunchtime happened. At this point, I had switched to working on a sock. I had started a sock on the airplane and it didn't go well, so I frogged it and I completely redid it. I got about as far as I did before I frogged it today. I got to try it on my foot and it seems to fit even though the stitch count is slightly off. But I'm trying to keep track of the stitch count so that way the sock will match the other sock that I make, because I'm only making one sock at a time for this pattern. If I seem a bit spacey, I had 2 glasses of wine today. That may have been a mistake. I'm usually only a once and done type of person, but I decided to pour a second glass today and now I'm having trouble ordering my thoughts. About 3:30 was the plan for the ride, but we decided, as a group, to start arranging for it a little bit earlier. So I got to ride my horse sweater while I was on a horse, which was pretty freaking cool. It's knitting, so it was a very windy day today, and the wind did cut through it because there's a bunch of holes in knitting. But overall, I felt nice and warm. If I were to wear this at home in Philly during the winter time, it would work, but if I were to put it on in Philly now, I'd be sweltering. So there's not going to be much wearing it unless I happen to travel somewhere else that's cold, or at least for several months. I was talking to my horse like, hey, Feefo, did you enjoy my sweater today? Look at my sweater. I finished my sweater. Feefo didn't know what I was doing. I also booped Feefo on the nose. We went for our last horse ride. We didn't necessarily tack up the horses in the stable today. There were some horses tacked up in the stable and I did pet some horses on the way in, and I got my helmet because I knew where that was. But I was just interacting with some of the other horses and the horses liked the attention. Then we went outside and we started waiting for our different horses. They brought out Feefo for me for the last day, so I rode Feefo for all 4 rides, which means we now have got a rapport going on, so I brushed him real good. While I was in the process of brushing his tail, he decided to fart on me, which was kind of annoying. But if you think about it, I'd rather be farted on than pooped on, which could have also happened while I was brushing his tail. Yeah, we were getting some last minute pictures, all of us on horses, and I didn't take out my phone once I actually got on the horse, but I helped get the saddle for the horse, and I helped put the saddle on the horse too today, so I'm starting to learn a little bit more about it. I felt much better on the saddle today. I'm glad just the simple fact of having experience made it a lot easier to cope with learning a new skill. I didn't feel as uncomfortable as I did the first day. But Feefo was a bit dawdly today. It was very windy outside, and when he wasn't dawdly behind another horse's butt, he wanted to go fast, and he went fast a couple times on his own, and I was like, Feefo, it's a little bit hard to control him today. But we got through the ride. We tilted a few times, and we got to have a couple nice runs. We went up and down a path that was by some sheep. There was a poor dead sheep on the side of the road. There's not that many predators in Iceland. It's mostly just birds and Arctic foxes. This point, so I'm guessing it was probably birds that got this particular sheep, and most of the horses were going around it, but one of the other people was riding a horse that definitely was a bit spunky. She tried to guide the horse around it, but the horse was like, no, I want to be in front, and plowed right through the baby sheep. The person on the horse also happens to be a vegetarian, but even so, it's like, wow, that horse has a bit of a person there. It was also a beautiful view while we were on the horses. One of the mountains had a plateau-like effect, which actually made me think of the American West. And as it turns out, one of the other people said to me as I was thinking that, this reminds me of where my daughter works in Montana. With the exception of a couple things, this feels like I'm in Montana. But the weather was absolutely beautiful for our ride. With the exception of the really heavy wind, it was so sunny. The temperature was a pretty comfortable temperature too. After I came back from the walk, I just came in to the guest house and I used the bathroom real quick, and then I went back out because it's like, well, I've only gone on one nature walk by myself throughout the area since I've been here. I've been spending a lot of time knitting because I've been wanting to get the sweater done, but I probably should take advantage of the nature while I'm still here. So I decided to go on a walk, and I went near where they had the nest, and a bird tried to do a dive intimidation stance about 3 times, and by that I mean the bird didn't actually dive into me, but he hovered right above my head and then squawked like 3 times. It's like, okay, I'm not even close. You have a moat around the entire island. I'm not going to go through that. I don't want to get wet, but the bird was like that anyway. So I turned around the other direction, and then I actually found an entrance into the grass. Like, a lot of the grass is hard to go on the reservation because it's roped off for the horses, but there was an entrance, and I tried to go through it, but then another bird just started chirping, and it made me worried that I'd walked into a nesting area without realizing it, so I turned around and went back. So I was out for a good half hour. I stared at some lupins. Then I joined the knitting crew again, and the knitting designer brought some extra copies of her book with her. She was offering a chance to sell them to us today because she needed room in her suitcase for the yarn that she bought. I was like, you have a chance to buy a book from the knitting designer, why not? So I got the American version of the book, and obviously because last night, one of the other ladies mentioned, I want to get the name designer to sign it. And I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. So I brought it up, and when I bought the book from her, and she was like, yeah, I'm going to ask the ranch owner if she has a Sharpie. And she ended up getting a Sharpie from her later, so I was able to get the book signed, dinner was pretty good. It was our last meal here, and we had salmon covered with pecan nuts, and I didn't really eat too much of the pecan nuts, but the salmon, it was perfection. You just placed the butter knife in it and it just fell apart. And there was also bread and asparagus and roasted potatoes. The potatoes were also perfection. Yeah, I did have 2 glasses of wine with dinner. That's a lot. I did drink water with it too. And then for dessert we had a ice cream mini bar in a way. There was like vanilla ice cream, and then there was the chocolate sauce and a strawberry sauce that was homemade, and some homemade whipped cream, and there were also 3 types of chocolate. So there was like the malted ball chocolate, and then there was the crushed Oreos, and then there was licorice covered chocolate. There's a lot of licorice candy in Iceland, and that was all very good. Also, the ranch owner's children came over to have dinner, like the toddler and the 6-year-old. The toddler at one point got cream, and you could just hear me all like, I love cream. So I just shouted, after he said it a couple times, I went like, me too. Also, at one point, the toddler demanded milk. So he has this little sippy cup, and one of the other ladies in the group handed him some milk. But what the little toddler did with the milk was, after he was handed the milk, he took off the lid and the milk spilled all over the floor. So then the lady from our knitting group ended up telling the ranch owner, like, hey, did you know that he can pull the lid off of his sippy cup? And she was like, no, that's a new development. So it's like, yeah, toddler's going to toddle, right? He ended up just having a sensory overload and just acting like a toddler. And I know it must be annoying when you have a toddler all the time to have to deal with them, but she does a pretty good job. When we came back from the ride, we ended up taking a group photo. So we pulled into the stable, but then we stayed on the horses and we moved around to take a picture. And the horses were like, we're home. Why are we going back out? We need rest. But we got the horses really close together to get a really good group picture. And I was standing next to another horse. The other horse tried to take, like, not a hard chomp, but a slight chomp out of my leg. And it's like, okay, buddy. My horse was also getting a little bit too close to the horse on the other side and was making the other person a little bit nervous. It was like, nope. When we took the picture, one of the horses just decided I had enough and just crossed right down the middle of the grass. And it's like, okay, we're actually going to try to stick to the path to the horses who were a little bit more restrained. And Feefel was super hungry today on the trail. He stopped for grass 4 times at least. It's like, okay, buddy, like, I can tell he wants the grass because we stopped, and then suddenly he's really pushing on the bridle. And if I let the bridle go down all the way, he can bend his head all the way down, and then he can reach the grass. It's like, well, at least give him a chance to eat. When we came back around the second time to the place to drop him off, and I got off the horse, suddenly Feefel decided to do what he's done the past 2 times that we ended a ride, which was start peeing. But thankfully, unlike the past 2 days, he did it outside the stable. And the horse workers were looking at Feefel and was like, Thank you, Feeful. Thank you for not doing it inside the stable this time. So I was like, yeah, he's peeing like a champion. After that, we took him to get tacked up again, and I brushed him down for the last time and then just spent some time petting him. And after that, I helped put him in the pen and I got to take the final bridle off of him so he wasn't wearing anything. I said, "You're free," even though I was moving him into a gated pen. But at the time I was thinking, oh, he's free from wearing the saddle and the bridle, which he's constantly chomping at. After dinner, people who were working at Hestaland who were not going to be seeing us tomorrow said goodbye and that they enjoyed spending time with us, and it was a very nice gesture on their part to do. And in all honesty, the staff here at Hestaland, amazingly hard workers, very friendly, very knowledgeable in what they are doing. This is an absolutely wonderful place to stay. That's a credit to the people who work here, basically. The reason why it's so nice to stay here is because of the people who are working here. Oh yeah, also in the stable today, there were 4 little horses stuck in the arena and they were pretty young, and it basically floated around that today they got gelded, so goodbye nuts, right? I heard from other people there were a lot of bloody gauze in the trash can. I pretty much just spent the rest of the night knitting. I stayed up because I've been staying up anyway, but one other person was about to finish her hooded cape. She was sewing it shut, and I decided to stay up to see the end of this hooded cape, and she tried it on and it looks amazing on her. She did such an amazing job. I think she said it was her first piece of color work that she's ever knitted, and it fits her personality so well. The capelet is made with black and gray yarn, and the person who made it has had a picture taken of her by waterfalls looking like a Victorian ghost. I mean that in the kindest way possible. But yeah, I still have to pack. I haven't packed yet. I probably should. I know I don't have to completely pack right now, but I do want to get to a point where I can try to get as much in the suitcase as I can and then see what I have to wear for tomorrow. And some people have already left or will have left by tomorrow morning. One person ended up leaving tonight because she has a really early flight tomorrow. Some people think they may or may not be at breakfast tomorrow because they're driving to a place that's 3 to 4 hours away. It turns out I'm going to be one of the few to actually leave tomorrow instead of the next day because of the timing of the flights and the timing of when the fan hits the airport. But yeah, that was the day. I'm very, very glad that I've come here. I'm very glad I've had the opportunities that I've had here, and I would absolutely do it all again. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.